Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I am James Haskell, along with my faithful compadre, Glenn Martin. Glenn, how you doing this evening on a Tuesday night?
Doing well. Had the opportunity to chaperone my son's field trip today to an estuary, which was fun. I learned a lot. And shout out to Mr. Topfer, by the way, who's a fan of the show, one of the third grade teachers at my son's school. So shout out to Mr. Topfer. Because knows his stuff and super cool. And yeah, it was an awesome day. Beautiful weather. What a better, couldn't have better weather to go visit an estuary than today.
Yeah, where'd you guys go? What is it in Harford County?
Yeah, it's not far. Right down Route 40, not far at all. And it's kind of like a little bit of a hidden gem, and got to learn some stuff and enjoy nature, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's always a good day. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. All right, cool. Well, speaking of fun, tonight is going to be a really fun show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to talk about. I mean, it's an action-packed show, so we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about two major things. Half of the show, we're going to talk about the Jalen Hurts contract in relation to Lamar Jackson. How does it affect Lamar Jackson? How do the contracts stack up? Et cetera, et cetera. Get your guys' opinion. Give our opinions. And then the second half of the show, Jason from DraftPlex. You guys know Jason from DraftPlex, of course. He's been on the show many a time. The most accurate draft insiders, like as we like to call him. He will be on the show, and Glenn and I will be revealing our mock drafts that we've done separately, and then Jason will be grading them for likelihood, fit for the Ravens, etc. All that will go into his grading, of course. But so we're excited to talk about it, Glenn. Without any further ado, let's talk about the news first. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts getting a deal. So let's talk about the details of Jalen Hurts' deal a little bit, and then we'll do some comparing to Lamar Jackson. First of all, when you saw it, okay, let me ask you this: when you saw the notification come up and you didn't see the numbers yet, were you low key a little nervous that this deal was going to be leaning to? Not nervous in that like you don't want Lamar to get paid, but nervous in that like, oh man, if this is a Deshaun Watson type deal, the Ravens are never going to sign Lamar. You know what I mean? Were you a little nervous? Did that go through your head?
It didn't. I was, but I wasn't nervous. I was excited. When I saw it, I couldn't wait to click on to get the details. I was actually nervous thinking, because, oftentimes the headline will come out before the numbers come out. And so I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I better see some numbers. I just want to see something, because it's like you said, Jimbo, it's not that seeing if he got, somewhere even near and approaching that 230, that means, oh man, I'm bummed out because I don't want Lamar to get that. I just know that Ravens aren't going there, and that would mean Lamar is no longer here. So, yes, but happily, I'd say I was surprised to see that. Well, let's just get right into it, because I'm just going to throw up the values here.
Yeah.
Sarah Ellison did a really nice job of kind of just breaking down the differences of the contracts in comparison to the reported contract that was turned down by Lamar Jackson just a little while back. And of course, shout out to Sarah for getting some pretty good pub on Pat McAfee's show, getting the love, wasn't she?
Yeah, and well-deserved. Sarah's been grinding for a long time. I will say one thing, though, and it's funny, actually, speaking of Sarah, I saw her counterpart, Bobby Trossett, today down by the water. I was running with my son after dinner, and he was walking, it looked like, with a buddy of his. We said what's up to each other, so shout out to them. They're doing great things. But I got to say this, Glenn. Mm-hmm. DK deserves his flowers here, because since day one of all the contract confusion, DK's been keeping us straight.
Yep.
He's had it locked down from the very beginning. Does his research and knows his stuff like very few, even national media folks who have, are billion-dollar conglomerates have entire teams behind him, still get it wrong. And DK, there he is, getting it right. So shout out to Sarah, shout out to DK for getting it right. But yeah, this is an interesting comparison here. Walk us through this, Glenn.
Yeah, so as you can see, the total value of the contract, both were 5-year deals. So total value for Jalen's new contract, $255. Lamar Jackson's offered contract, $250. So 50 a year for LJ, 51 a year for Jalen Hurts. And then at signing, the full guarantees at signing, Lamar Jackson was set to earn $133 million when pen hits paper, where Jalen signed and got $110 in full guarantees. Now, there were some further guarantees for injury, as well as roster bonuses that total Jalen Hurts' contract to $179.3 million in total guarantees, and Lamar Jackson's to $200 million in total guarantees. So, man, so the first thing that made me think of when I saw these numbers, Jimbo, is I wanted to see the reaction from the media. I wanted to see what all the talking heads had to say about this contract. And I don't know if I was surprised, but to see everyone just talk about this like it was the greatest. They talk about this as a win-win, right? Both sides win. They kept the cap number down in the first 3 years, kept the cap number down, maintained flexibility. And, Jalen gets his money, gets his bag. I know that he has his agent is a woman, and that's groundbreaking in that industry. And so she was celebrating on Twitter that she got her client the bag. And shout out to both of them, because I know the story for Jalen is pretty incredible, where he came from.
There'll be a movie about it one day.
Yeah, it's quite Disney-like. Yeah, it is movie-worthy. So shout out to him. But it's pretty clear, Jimbo. Can we put to rest the claims that the Ravens were disrespectful, that their offer was not his market, that their offer was somehow an insult to Lamar Jackson and what he's accomplished, when in fact he turned down more money than Jalen Hurts just agreed to, and a contract that was just, universally applauded by everyone as being a win-win for both sides. And here we see that Lamar Jackson was offered more. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Eric DeCosta sitting back in his office. Validation, alas. You know what I mean? My gosh, the Ravens have been getting drugged for a long time. And I got to add one more note to this, Glenn, that we learned today that we did not know about the Lamar deal and was made public about the Jalen deal. This is the first time I'd heard it. In year one, new money in year one, Jalen gets $60 million. In the proposed deal to Lamar, it was 87.6.
So you want me to put that video up? I could put that up.
Oh yeah, you can do it.
I have it queued.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting, because that's just another way in which.
There we are.
Yeah. I don't think this is. Oh yeah, this is. You got it. Yep.
This is it.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is
before the season.
Can you hear it?
Season, the Ravens offered Lamar Jackson a 5-year extension. He was ready on the 5th-year option. A 5-year extension for $250, so $50 a year. So that altogether he would be under contract for 6 years, but he would have 5 years of new money for $250. Jalen Hurts got a 5-year $255 extension. Now, obviously, they are not the same players. Lamar was an MVP, but Jalen also went to the Super Bowl, so comparable enough. So basically, a year later, Jalen gets $51 a year on a 5-year extension. The new cash, so take out what they were making. So take out Lamar's $23 a year, $23 in this season, and take out Jalen's salary. Take out the salaries that are already on the book.
4.3 for Jalen, 22.
4.3 for Jalen, 23 for Lamar. Take them out.
Yeah. Okay.
Lamar's new cash by the end of the first year would be $87.6 million.
Okay, so I see that you're going with a different way of elaborating why you were potentially.
I'm just giving you good numbers.
Got it. Yeah, we're just making up new numbers. 87.
Jalen Hurts' cash by the end of the first year was 60.
Okay.
So that is an indication that Lamar's offer cash-wise was pretty strong.
Just another way.
Okay. Let's get to the guarantee.
Jalen in his 4th. Go on.
Right. True. They are not comparable, and I would say Lamar has more leverage.
Yeah, we can do this.
Let me know when you. I can't hear it, so let me know.
Let's get to
I should stop.
Guarantee.
Yeah, you're good.
Lamar
You're
Jackson,
good. You're good. That was the new money piece. I think that was really the piece that was missing, which I think is interesting, because it's just once again another category in which the Ravens showed that they were willing to do everything they could to keep a guy, and keep Lamar Jackson around, give him a deal that is worthy of applauding, like you mentioned, and that is a deal that is fitting for Lamar Jackson. I don't think that they insulted him. I don't think that they undercut him. I don't think they did any of that. Because if you look at the guarantees, that 200 number, what the Ravens did was he gets it in different. So he gets the 133 at signing, just like every other player. He gets those guarantees. It's just like vesting And so over a period of time, those guarantees hit and they vest, right? And the Ravens really, the way they structured the contract, painted themselves in a corner voluntarily, saying, dude, we know you're going to be here because we're not going to take a $76 million, cap hit, dead money hit. So you're going to get that money, just not today. You're going to get it 24 months from now or whatever the term ended up being. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Ravens did a great job with this deal. Ultimately, Glenn, the question that is on the table now is, what does Lamar do? Does he continue to wait for Joe and Herbert to get their money? What if they don't get Jalen Hurts money? I mean,
it's looking like chasing that money is just
harmful.
It's for both parties, for both sides. I think that it's pretty clear.
The first time go ahead.
The two least cash rich franchises in the league are probably the Bengals and the Chargers.
And Raiders right there. But they're top 5. They're for sure.
Now they know they have something special. Certainly in Cincinnati, they have something special. I think they're gonna dole out for it, but they're not gonna give 231. So I think what it's hopefully doing is just furthering the point that the offer was more than fair, and I hope that Lamar Jackson can come back to the table, accept the offer, and we can move on. Eli Hoff says, rumor has it that if we get D-Hop. With that being said, what does that do to the Lamar Jackson situation? With the draft soon, does that mean a position other than wide receiver, or does that mean EDC goes after a younger wide receiver? We're going to get into all that draft stuff in just a few minutes, but what do you think about the D-Hop stuff? And apparently this was on his wish list, and he had demands of getting both D-Hop and OBJ, and then he'd come back to the table. What do you think about those reports?
I didn't hear about that. So you got that from a pretty good source that he had some demands?
Well, it's floating around social media that I think it was Michael Lombardi is the one who I heard say it.
Well, that's a decent
which
source.
is a pretty good source. And he said that basically that was the feeling, that he wanted OBJ and D-Hop. And they said, we might only be able to get one. And he said, I want both. So who knows if that's true, but it couldn't hurt to bring D-Hop in, at least from a weapons standpoint, right?
No, I mean, absolutely not. He would, instantly be the number one. Even, Odell Beckham at this point is not, I don't know if he was ever better than DeAndre Hopkins, but, is not.
Ooh, that's a discussion.
At
his peak?
I still think DeAndre is a better football player.
DeAndre was all pro, and he's a monster. I'm not going to, but I think it's at least.
It's a conversation for sure.
It's a discussion because they're different types of players. So it's
different.
I guess if you wanted this, then you take this guy. But if you want this at his peak, you take this guy.
Yeah, no, for sure. But they're totally different players. You're absolutely right. Like there's very little to compare them other than they play wide receiver.
Right.
So, I mean, the way they
would complement each other probably
so
excellent.
Well. I mean, incredibly. Yeah. So ultimately, though, I'm interested to see how this works with D-Hop. It's funny because now the national media is getting this wrong again, saying that we paid all this money out to Odell, which we did, but no one mentions the years in which we added on that are voidable, that bring that cap hit down. No one's talking about that. So there is potential for things to be worked around. And look, if the Lamar deal gets done, then it gets done, and there's potential for it to be lower this year. And the other thing I'll say too, D-Hop put out a tweet that said, D-Hop doesn't want a pay raise.
Yeah, that's
quoting himself. Yeah, he just wants out.
Because I like if the numbers, especially if you can manage it, kind of like how they did. We just saw the Steelers make a move for a receiver today in Robinson. They're only paying $5 million of his $15 million. And by the way, you know what? There was quick side note. There's a list that came out of it graded the GMs. Why is the Rams GM? Look, if they didn't win that damn Super Bowl, they are a dumpster fire. They traded him away for a swap of 7th round picks. They're going to pay him $10 million. The Steelers only got to pay $5 just to get him away.
They're so desperate.
They're just the team is being dismantled. But do you think we could somehow manufacture a deal that's similar and that we won't have to absorb 100% of his salary, and that maybe Arizona will eat some of it like we saw in LA?
Yeah, I think that's certain. I mean, that's we've seen that. I'm trying to think if we had a recent trade where this was the case, wasn't it?
Was Peters somehow we didn't take on the whole salary? I think they paid
we had
a portion of it.
But yeah, I mean, certainly Eric DeCosta is going to do something of that nature, and it will have to be within the deal. So yeah, I can totally see that happening. I mean, look, it's a new coaching staff in Arizona. They want to do things different. They want to, start fresh, get Kyler in line, things like that. And look, maybe Kyler, I mean, you always want good weapons, but he wants to be the star of the show. I don't know if that has anything to do. I don't know a ton about the Arizona Cardinals, but he might not be the biggest fan of keeping D-Hop there. So yeah, I think it's real. I think it could happen. The draft stuff, like Glenn said, we will get to, but Turner W says both were extensions with 1 year left when offered. So Jalen would be under contract for 6 years for $259, while Lamar would have 6 years for $273. Okay. I mean, look, ultimately it's more money. I mean, I don't know
if you count, well, because his 5th year
was higher, right? And he was a 2nd round pick, so he didn't have a 5th year,
right?
Which is kind of cool too, because you get your money earlier.
That's true. Not that $32 million is anything to sneeze at, or $23 million is anything to sneeze at. But yeah, I mean, another example, and I think looks like Turner. This is the same. I think this is the same person back to back. Turner W from Florio, from Mike Florio. By year 2, Hurts will have his full guarantee increase to 126.5. Jackson would have had 168 million in full guaranteed. So just another example of where the Ravens were dead on in his market. And in fact, generous. Like I tell you what, it does prove. It does prove a couple things. It does prove that Lamar Jackson could negotiate at least getting himself a fair deal. It proves that the Ravens weren't taking advantage of his inexperience and naivety in the negotiation process. They came strong, right? So it just seems like maybe so I don't know if he would have benefited from having an agent and negotiate a better deal, because it seems like he got a ridiculously good deal, but maybe that agent would have been like, it's time to sign, it's time to sign this deal, where he's still holding out hope that he can pull off the 231. And I don't think anyone's going to give him that. Not just Baltimore.
No, this is, man, this is an interesting one, because now how does Eric reapproach the conversation? Does he wait for Lamar to come back to him? Does he go to Lamar and say, hey man, look, offer's still on the table. Let's have a conversation. It's going to be really interesting, but my faith has been wavering up and down in Eric this offseason. And I'm back on the horse, dude. Because this was a great deal for Lamar. He knows what the heck he's doing. He's a wizard. Maybe Ozzy's the only wizard, but certainly he's the wizard's protege. And I think he did a great job with this one, and I'm hoping we get it done. Because look, Glenn, Lamar's better than Jalen Hurts. Say what you will.
But I will say Jalen has had the more recent success.
It's true.
He was second in MVP voting last year. Right. He went to the Super Bowl last year. So you got to, recency matters.
No, for sure. League. Absolutely. And that's why he got his bag. But my point is that, as far as a return on investment,
I'll take
long-term, 100%. Because Lamar has done so much with, not that we haven't built a team around him, but that Eagles team last year, that roster.
Oh, imagine when they go get Bijan Robinson this year in the first round and add that type of talent to the backfield. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
But I gotta tell you this, Glenn. I gotta tell you this. Okay. I was thinking about this. This season, there are no excuses for Lamar Jackson. Draft, be it what it may, whatever happens in the draft. But we've talked about this before. We're talking about the wide receiver room. When you got 3 good wide receivers, OBJ, Rashad Bateman, and Nelson Aguilar is a good wide receiver. He's good.
Let's not forget about Devin Duvernay.
And then you add Devin Duvernay to that. But it's funny, all offseason, no one's talked about the fact that, because people are like, oh, well, we don't have a tall 6'4" guy. Oh, what about 89? What about Lamar Jackson's favorite target? And then look at his backs. Look at his O-line. Then look at the defense. Look at the special teams. Where is there a major hole? Like a major, oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
The only scary one right now is quarterback, but.
Oh, right. But I mean, an existing option.
Right.
I don't think there's any excuses. I think this is one of the most complete teams that we've had in a long time, and it's exciting. So look, it's the first time, this is what I was going to say earlier. It's the first time on Twitter I've seen a bit of a revolt. People have started saying, Lamar, sign the deal already. Like, sign the deal already. Get it done. Like, you're starting to see these people that normally are on his side start to get a little impatient. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but it's just a change in the winds. And it'll be interesting to see how it affects the proceedings of Lamar Jackson. And we're going to get to corner. I know that corner is a weakness, but it's not that we don't have an option there. Like, Brandon Stevens has shown he can be serviceable.
Oh, I see what he's saying. I see. No, I do think corner is a pretty big need. I thought you were talking about just offensive.
Sure. I was generally speaking. Offense was corners.
Corner's pretty scary.
Corner's bad, but do you think it's as bad as the edge position was last year before we went out and got Houston, before we went out and got JPP, before we drafted Ajabo? I think that position was worse.
Well, I mean, I have it pulled up because I was, doing a bunch of mocks and
yeah.
I mean, look, it's literally behind Marlon. It goes right to Brandon Stevens.
Yeah.
Then to Demarion Williams, Pepe. It goes to Jalen.
Right.
Man, I don't know, man. It's kind of thin. And then imagine this. Imagine Marlon's out for a couple weeks.
Yeah. It gets rough. Don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is I feel like there's a bit more on the bone, relatively speaking, to last year with the edge position. It was like before we signed those.
We only had one guy on the whole
roster. We had Owe.
That's it. That was the whole roster.
Mr. Production himself. So
by the way, Mr. Topfer said, he told me to tell you this, and I'm glad you just mentioned. He said, give Owe another chance, man. He said, give him a chance. He said, don't give up on Adafe yet. So I wanted to make sure I pass that along.
Well, look, fine. He gets 3 strikes, right? He's got 2.
Okay, all right. He better choke up on that bat, Jimbo.
That's right. All you gotta do is hit a single, bro. Baby. Like, all you gotta do is get on base. I'm not asking for a home run. Just get on base. That's it, man. That's it. So yeah, I mean, let me ask you this, Glenn, before we transition into the draft. Ultimately, what does this affect, or what does this signing have as far as an effect on the Lamar Jackson Baltimore Ravens conversation?
Well, I tell you what, it bolsters the side of the Ravens, and it should convince Lamar Jackson that they did present a great deal and that he should come sign it. However, I think Lamar Jackson is quite a stubborn man. I believe he's a man that when he digs his heels in, that is what it is, and I don't see him. I don't see him changing his mind, even if he's presented with the evidence of contract from Hurts, and I don't even know if a Burrow and Herbert signing to a similar contract where, again, nobody comes close to 231 in full guarantees, then I think he's still going to just play out this year under the contract as it, currently is just a franchise tag. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope he comes back and we see a 5-year deal. I don't even want to see a 3-year deal. I'll settle for that. But 5 years, I know, gives them some more flexibility with the cap. So that's what I'm hoping for. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here, but I think ultimately this is going to push Lamar Jackson to have to, eat a bit of humble pie. Look, this is the validation that he needed, some closure to understand where the market is. And the Ravens are going to give him a little more, give him a little cherry on top. And if he's somewhat reasonable, this should make sense. Should just make sense. Like, let's get it done. Stop taking up so much real estate in my brain, man. Let's get it over with. Let's play football.
In my heart.
That's right. And
Eli says 89 is great, but we need a true deep threat. So DCs have to choose who to double up. Think about that.
Well, that's why we got Aguilar. That's why we got Aguilar
and Lamar. Yeah. I mean, Aguilar had that fantastic year where I think he was with the Raiders in Oakland at the time, where he had a breakout, year as a deep threat. But I wouldn't mind, to Eli's point, I would certainly not mind to see them add some more. But I will also have to remind people that Devin Duvernay has burners. It's just he wasn't utilized, I don't think, to the max. So I think we do have some speed there. Now Prochet, I'm not sure about the top end speed. Wallace, not sure about the top end speed.
And look, Bateman has shown he can take the top off the defense.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even talking about Bateman just because he's already, he's included. But yeah, I mean, let's not sleep on his speed either. All right, so Jimbo, I think we got to get into it, man. Let's do it. Without further ado, so it's draft season. The draft's right around the corner. What are we? man, what are we, 9-10 days away? I mean, it's really, really close, and this is a big year for the Ravens. They had 5 picks as it currently is constructed. I think that their goal has always been to add more, but this is a big-time draft. So we are going to do a 7-round mock draft live here with you guys. Of course, we've already done these to make sure of the accuracy, to make sure that we're not putting together a goofy draft that has no possibility of it actually taking place. And to further that, because we like to compete no matter what it is around here, right, Jimbo? I don't care what it is. We decided to bring in a judge. And we couldn't just bring in any judge, you know? We wanted to make sure we bring in an expert on this whole mock draft business, okay? Because this gentleman's going to pick a winner between me and Jimbo. I think we all know who he's going to pick in the end. I think let me start stretching out my shoulder because my arm will be raised at the end of this practice or exercise.
I am the champion. Last year, I won.
Did you?
Just so you know, I won.
I don't remember that, dude.
Of course you don't remember.
I don't remember that.
Selective amnesia.
I really don't, though. I thought I don't know, man. I think I have to review the tape. I'll have to review the tape. But nonetheless, without further ado, let me introduce our guest, DraftPlex own Jason Pruitt. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jason. I appreciate you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Now, before we get into the draft stuff, y'all were talking about Oweh there. I've got a little bit of a grievance from the last show because I was kind of going back through the comments, and somebody had mentioned that I called him the best pass rusher either in that draft or in the future. That is not accurate at all, man. I mean, I'll take criticism. I didn't even have Oweh in my first round mock that year. So
I don't know who said that. Was it a commenter?
Yeah, it was a comment in there.
My man is going back and pulling receipts on y'all. Better
I know receipts, man, because I can appreciate a little bit of criticism. We all do in this space, but hey, if I'm gonna get the attack on something that I've done, I can take that. Just don't misrepresent me for that. Because then they said, like, that started to be a little bit of a grumbling there. Like I was Lamar or something. They're like, DraftPlex is slipping. And I went back and checked those receipts too, man. No matter where you go last year, outside of maybe the Huddle Report, those other sites that do that, I mean, I was like top 30, top 40 out of like hundreds of mocks. So like we're still, riding steady, and
there we go.
There's not too many of the other folks that are on there that actually have a scoring title up to them. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before we jump into this. Let's dial it back some, thinking just because you might have a little bit of an idea about what I said in the past. That wasn't true at all. So
my man came out
just squash
firing.
that right here.
All right, fair enough. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm gonna take some notes here because I don't buy into. Do you remember who you awarded the victory last year pre-draft? Do you have a memory of that?
Not offhand. Now that you mention it, I don't really recall. Because I know it was a little bit back and forth. I won't dispute James's claim that he was the winner.
That's right.
I will.
But I can neither confirm nor deny who might have got the Duke last year. So we can go back and check the tape, but I just can't recall offhand.
Nice.
Okay.
So Glenn and I were talking about this, and for your own sanity here, Jason, our the way that obviously, at least in our minds, the way that it will go is, we want you to grade it on likelihood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
On fit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think those are the two big criteria. And then need, of course, for the team. And we'll kind of highlight the needs really quickly before we run it down. Now, Glenn, in this first run through, we were talking earlier, are we going to do no trades just straight up through? And then okay, cool. All right, that sounds good.
Now let me preface it. We both believe, I think it's fair to say, me and Jimmy both believe there will be a trade back in the first round for the Ravens. Yep. I think I would be stunned. There has to be a player that they are absolutely in love with that they can't believe fell into their laps for them not to trade back. So we expect to trade back. So even though we're not going to show that maybe in this first mock, we might just knock out a quick second one with a trade back because it just seems incredibly obvious.
100%.
But all right. So Jimbo, and then Jason, if you have a different answer to this question, please jump in. But Jimbo, what do you identify as the Ravens' top 3 needs as it stands currently?
Yeah, I think top 3 needs for me: corner, edge, and still wide receiver.
Okay.
And wide receiver only because your top 2 wide receivers are coming off major injuries.
That's fair. And let's not forget that there's no receiver under contract after this year other than Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, got to fill the coffer.
Exactly. You don't want to have to rebuild from scratch next season again after having, just adding one guy. All right. So cornerback, wide receiver, edge. Jason, what do you think? Do you think that is generally the needs for the Ravens, or would you add another group?
No, that's actually exactly where I have it. The way I stacked it in terms of my needs aren't just like 1, 2, 3. It's like, where could they actually address this? Like, for what makes the most sense. So I have corner in big bright red because I just don't know how you can go into the season as it is. Obviously, things can still be done, like signing some guys off the street, or maybe, you want to work a deal out back with Peters or whoever it may be. That might still be out there available because, teams kind of shut it down after the first 2 or 3 weeks as far as putting a team together. Then they get, focused on the draft. But corner to me still is the obvious need, followed by still wide receiver, because I think that's the area where you can get it. And then edge, defensive line is where that next one's going to be. But again, it just depends on how the board falls, because, if you ask me, based on going through the mocks that I have, I think there's a concern that you should have at 22 that you're going to be wiped out of that top 4 group of corners. You could already be into that second tier if you tried to go corner there. Outside of maybe Brian Branch, and that depends if you want to play him, because he's more of, kind of classified as a safety, but he is more of a slot nickel type player. And I think, the Ravens might be looking more for an outside corner. So that would be the one kind of caveat to that, where you're picking. But I think the trade back does make most sense. I went through my 7-round mock, and the Ravens only had 5 picks. I was like, there's no way they come out of this with just 5 picks. So, I went through, because I don't do trades in the 7th round, because that's a lot to keep track of. But yeah, I certainly feel like it's a possibility for them to either move back in the 1st round or just drop out of the 1st round completely. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night, certainly on Thursday night if you're a Ravens fan. You can count on that. But Glenn's right. Things could change if somebody falls into their lap. Now, Glenn, how do you feel about the needs?
I 100% agree. I do think interior defensive line is a bit of a sneaky need, with Metabike uncertain about what his future is with the Ravens after this season. He could be priced out. They lost Calais Campbell. Broderick Washington, is playing well, but he's also nearing the end of his contract. So outside of who's the D tackle they got last year?
Travis Jones.
Yeah, Travis Jones. There's not a lot of youth at that position. So I think there's a sneaky need at defensive line as well. But, you never know with the Ravens, man. Like you said, I wouldn't be stunned at all to see them take that Alabama safety and stick him at nickel and just be happy. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all. But I think fans would lose their mind if they see another 1st-round safety after taking Kyle Hamilton last year. But let's get into it, Jimbo. I'm going to see what this looks like if I try and put this up on the screen with all 3 of us. Okay, perfect. So it does work. Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't look too bad. All right. So as you guys can see, I've set the board, basically 50-50, where the public sees players, where PFF sees players. We did positional value right down the middle. We drafted far more for need than for randomness. Just because I think that's how teams typically do things. More need than the randomness can be fun though. But we'll start the draft here. And again, this first run through, no trades, just straight through the 5 picks, and let's see how it goes.
And at the end of this, of course, to show that we prove that we were able to, under these same stipulations, get our picks, we'll have our screenshots of our picks up.
Yeah.
That's no problem. So, all right, who's going first?
All right, so
more beauty.
Sure, I'll go first. Now, again, this is no trades, but if you if you love a guy, you love a guy, right? I mean, so wow, look at that. First thing I see. Okay, so I, like Jason mentioned, is I'm big time on the Ravens going corner with their first pick. However, man, this is one of the very few mock drafts I've seen Deonte Banks actually available. This is actually the second one. I've probably done 10 of these just today, and this is only the second time I've seen Tay Banks available. With that said, Jimbo, I don't think I want Tay Banks.
All right.
And people might say, look, I might be up for some criticism in this draft, and I'm ready for it because I looked into these guys and I like them. So I am going to sort it by corner, however. But I don't like Tay. I want me some Emmanuel Forbes. I mean, this guy is an absolute freak show at corner. So let me pull up this young man. First and foremost, the guy's got the length. He's got he's 6'1". He's 166. So he's slight, but he's got the length. And he's got the height. That's for sure. Second thing I look at when I look at Mr. Emmanuel Forbes, 4.3 speed, Jimbo. The guy has got absolute burners. You're not getting it over top of him. You're not throwing it by him. You don't have to worry about that. This team needs an outside cornerback. This guy loves to press. He'll get it right up on you. He'll get you, a little 1-2, shake you right off your route, mess you all up. And then finally, Jimbo, they criticize, or not finally, next thing, they criticize his size. They talk about he's 160, he's so thin. And yes, he needs to put on some muscle. There's no doubt about it. But he's never missed a game. He's a 4-year starter who's never missed a game. So
my favorite thing about him, 4-year starter.
So it's available. Like, yeah, I mean, how do you criticize a guy and you worry about but he never misses games. And then he was a multi-sport athlete in high school, which I love seeing multi-sport guys. This guy played baseball, played basketball, played football. I love seeing that. Finally, ball skills out of this world. I want to see a corner with ball skills. He's got a little bit of the Marcus Peters trait.
Yeah, we love Marlon Humphrey, but goodness.
Yeah, he's not known for snatching the ball. This guy's got 14 interceptions in his career, 6 of which were pick sixes, Jimbo. When he gets his hands on the ball, it goes the other direction for 7. Okay? So I think the Ravens will trade back and still have the ability to take Emmanuel Forbes in the later round.
We're sticking here.
But I'm taking him because that's how much I like him. I don't even I still want him. Even though they might say that 22s, some people say that's too early. I still like him. So before we move on to your pick, what do you think about that, Jason?
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I really like Forbes. My only thing about him is the weight. And, of course, I'm doing it based on what I think teams are going to do. If you like him, though, I had him going into this whole process as the 4th-ranked corner. So this would have been the right range for him. I think it's still a pretty good range for him because of what he does bring to it, to your team with what he does on the outside. Yeah, you do worry about the weight because but that's what this draft is. It's just nothing but outliers at receiver, corner, every other position you want to think of. It's a lot of that just doesn't measure up. And I don't know in the end what the Ravens thresholds for things like that are, but I can't argue with you if you prefer him over Banks, because that's what I had initially. I think Banks will still go ahead of him, but especially in a trade back scenario, yeah, he's definitely. I expect Forbes. If he doesn't go first round, he's definitely going top 40. So,
like it.
Okay. All
right.
Okay. What do you think, Jimbo?
I like the pick. Look, if when I went through and did mine, the guy that I'm picking is not him, but half of the ones I did, I picked him. Because he's a Raven. Okay. I love the Ravens. So I try and get my head in what the Ravens done in the past. 4-year starter, like you mentioned, super available, got the length. He likes press, but he's also spent a lot of time in zone, which McDonald likes to do. All those things check the box. He's obviously an outside guy. I think putting on the weight, to me, I think it's overblown because putting on weight is the easiest of the things. If you need to improve on something, like you can't improve ball skills in 10 days. You can put weight on faster in 10 days. Like you can do that. You know what I mean? So I think that, goodness gracious, look at Giannis Antetokounmpo when he got drafted in the NBA and look at him now. I mean, it's night and day. So these guys can do this, but I am going to be a bit of a people pleaser here, Glenn. And the reason I'm going to say this is I'm going to frame this whole thing. Contingencies on contingencies on contingencies. The Baltimore Ravens, this is not my pick, by the way.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, the Baltimore Ravens are tired. Eric DaCosta is sick and tired of the slander on his name at the wide receiver position. That's right. I'm going with a wide receiver in the first round, and you got it. I'm going with Zay Flowers. You know what he's doing? He's righting the wrong with Marquise Brown. This kid is everything that Marquise Brown is supposed to be, and everything that Marquise Brown is, he is not. I like this kid. I feel like he's an absolute pit bull. I loved this. So funny, Glenn, because I swear it's somewhere in here. I think if you go to, I'm trying to figure it out. It talks about playing tag. You couldn't catch him in a phone booth. I'm like, somebody's been watching our show because it's a reference we make all the time. But we wanted Hollywood Brown to be this short area, quick, twitched space guy where we could get the ball too quickly and left and right make a move and make some guys miss. And this is what this kid is. He's put on weight quickly. He's shown he's dedicated to the weight room. I mean, I think the statistics are what they are. Jason mentioned the outlier piece. People worry about the weight. People worry about the height. He's already put on a ton of weight. And so I think this kid is a great fit because what's going to happen, what happened last year cannot happen again. One of my favorite movies is McFarland, and the coach in their first race says, we know now what we didn't know then. We know now we didn't know then. Look, the Ravens will never be in a scenario again where if their one goes down, it's a dumpster fire at wide receiver. Eric DeCosta will not allow that to happen. So if Beckham goes down, if Bateman goes down again, heck, if Duvernay goes down again, you need someone you can put you can put some faith in and rely on. And I think this kid's got it in his personality and obviously in his statistics. Man, he would be a great compliment to that room. So I'm taking Zay Flowers.
Wow, Zay Flowers. See, I like Zay, but I just get scared of them taking another first-round wide receiver, and if it goes south, but not that I want him to stop swinging. I agree.
Shoot, baby. Shoot.
Yeah, you got to keep at it. But I'm just in the camp of let's address that outside of the first round.
And let me also mention this. This is the other thing that another reason. So the reason I chose him instead of the corner was because I feel like the corner, every single one I did, there was 2 or 3 corners taken in the top 10, and then always 3 corners taken in the top 15. I'm afraid, like Jason mentioned, we'd be in a fringe spot. And if I had to stay at that pick, I think there's more value here than, if your guy's there, I think it's a coin flip. But if he's not, I think you'd be reaching if it's someone else.
Do you think he was here in our mock now? But Jason, I'll ask you this. First of all, how do you like the pick and the fit? And second, and this is really my question, is Zay going to be there?
Zay is my favorite receiver in this draft. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba certainly is worthy of being the first receiver off the board. I would prefer Zay, and when I end up with my final mock, he's going to be the first receiver off the board.
Wow. So we ain't getting him.
I don't think so. If he's there, certainly I'm taking him over Forbes because I have a first round grade on Zay, and Forbes I have a 1-2. As I mentioned, kind of what I see for the range of him. I think in a trade back scenario might be the better value for that. If you get Zay, yeah, I'm taking him all day over Banks, over Forbes.
Wow.
Gotcha. Now, again, just want to reiterate in the grading process that we have to account for likelihood of availability when you grade, okay? Because I can already see where this first round grade might be going. But I just want to point out the rules here.
Okay. It's fair. But look, all I'm saying is that every mock I did, he was available. I'm not reaching here.
All right.
Now let me share though. As I've worked through this, there's a scenario there where Zay could be there at 22, because I think his floor is 23 to the Vikings.
Okay.
So just because I have the scenario I've worked through now has him at the Patriots. If Patriots could easily go, Lucas Van Ness, or they could even do Jackson Smith and Jigba for
who's the biggest risk at bust, because that's probably who the Patriots will take because they
the USC
draft.
Let me go into like my fourth to sixth grades.
Yeah, that's the guy that Bill Belichick's going to take because he stinks as a GM and he's above average at best as a coach.
Let's just go ahead and give them Stetson Bennett in the first round.
I was going to say
that's hilarious. Yes. All right. So Zay Flowers.
Oh, go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, Zay Flowers I think would be an awesome pick, but scary. I'd be a little nervous. So all right, let's go on to. Who should I in this one? Who should I select here? Do you think? I guess I'll take Zay because he's the one who gives us the better grade in the end. But
yeah, Jordan Addison is what I was thinking about. He's Rashad Brashad Perryman all over again.
Yeah. Oh man, I hope not. I mean, if
well, I don't want him. I don't want to touch that kid, man. I don't want anything to do with him. No, thank you.
Yeah, I think Addison might be gone before that. there's a link there
Good.
with him and the Chargers. And if he doesn't go to the Chargers, I'm not sure if he goes in the first round.
Yeah, good riddance. Have at it. And I don't want anything to do with that kid. No, I'm sure he's a good guy. But all right, Glenn, let me keep rolling here. I caught the football god's Holy Ghost here, so I'm gonna keep rolling.
All right, how do you want me to sort this? What do you want me to do?
Yeah, so you can actually keep it right there. Right there. And this is an interesting one because this kid was not on my radar. This guy. Yes. Ooh, I'm going with the wild card. The reason is because if anyone does any research and understands Coach McDonald's, the way the players he likes, the way he likes to coach on defense is he wants everyone to know every position. He wants everyone to do everything. He wants guys with a lot of utility. To me, he's got to be salivating just simply looking at this guy's profile so he can create pressure from a myriad of positions. I don't know what type of role this kid could do if Patrick Queen ends up out the door. I don't know if that's a possibility because I haven't dug into it that deep, but his intrigue for me came when I started watching some tape and just watching him athletically, trying to think of all the things that McDonald did with Kyle Hamilton and will continue to do. And so I think that this kid is a fit because we need pressure wherever it comes from. Eric DaCosta has done some non-traditional things size-wise in the draft to take some guys. Hollywood is a perfect example. And this guy is small I would consider him pretty small for his position. And like it says here, he kind of played a goofy position and he's a hybrid. So I think that those things might scare a lot of other teams off, but I think that McDonald is one of the best at using the multitude of skills that players have and getting the both of best worlds out of him. So I'm taking Ed, what is it?
Herbig.
There you go.
Herbig.
Yeah. I'm taking him and I'm rolling with him only because of McDonald. It was hard for me to do this, but I have a lot of conviction in it because I think McDonald really likes a player like this and it just fits with his scheme.
Man. I mean, I like him. I just look at he's an off-ball linebacker. They got Roquan in that spot. So he could. I like the fact that he's got the flexibility. I think he can transition into a cover guy, and I love his pass rush, but I just wonder, man, he's so undersized on the edge. He can only be on the edge in a guaranteed pass rush, or they'll just run right through him.
Son Riddick's undersized.
That's true, and he's yeah. No, I mean, you're not wrong about Hassan Reddick. What do you think about Nick here, Jason?
So where are we at? Third round?
Third round
pick 86.
86 pick overall.
That's a reasonable range for him. I've seen him kind of up and down from there. Some boards, they like him. Like here, what do they have him at 58? That's a little rich for me. I think at the end of the third round, he's certainly within play. I'm not sure who else we have on the board. It looks like he's the highest ranked by, is this PFF?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we sort it by edge, they got Isaiah McGuire is the next guy from Missouri, KJ Henry, Byron Young.
Yeah, I think actually I like McGuire better. I like Byron Young better. Colby Wooden's, I think he's more of a kind of a hybrid defensive lineman. He can be inside or outside. So I like those guys better. I don't know who we have at corner.
Yeah, because Jimbo did not take a corner in the first round. He took Zay Flowers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's see. Well, I'm going to sort it by corner and see what we got.
Because I think Tomlinson there.
But I don't want you to spoil any of my later ones here.
Me
Jason.
neither.
So,
no.
So just great.
But I'll just say Tomlinson. I don't think there's any chance he goes top 100 because he is very, very small, and he's going to be off a lot of boards just from those thresholds. Guys know Ardarius Washington, right?
Oh yeah,
great player, but he was undrafted, right? Because he's not very big, and I think that's the issue with Tomlinson there. He's a good player, very feisty, but like it's very hard. He again is another outlier of outliers in terms of his size and his length. So.
Okay. All right.
But I'll let you
like
kind of proceed as you are. No, I like him too. I think he's a good day 3 pick and probably a good value for somebody there, but it's going to take the right team that's okay with all of the measurables to bring him in. So
Well, let me show you where I'm going because I went Forbes
Well,
in the
Glenn,
first.
really
pick.
quickly, I got to ask, how do you feel about my assessment that McDonald can get a lot out of this kid?
Oh,
based
he
on
certainly could.
versatility?
I just wonder where he's going to play because I think they keep Queen this year because I don't think they're getting better than the comp pick that they'll get from him next year if he leaves in free agency. So why not keep the hell of a player that he became after we got Roquan? So I think he's there. So you got 2 3-down linebackers in the middle of the field. You got Bowser, who you like to drop into coverage on the outside. I just wonder how he gets on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a 3rd-round pick, I think you want him to get on the field pretty quickly, especially when you have limited picks. So
this is the only thing I'll say that could push Pat Queen out of the door. If a scenario, we talked about D-Hop, if a scenario comes where we need to clear space and we'd prefer to have the new player instead of the services of Patrick Queen in, it could force the Ravens to do so in a cap clearing maneuver, trade him off for maybe what would be less than what they get in the comp pick. Now that would have to take the right player because like you said, they value those comp picks, but that was the one scenario that kept coming up in my mind. It was like, all right, if they got to clear some cap space, this is one position where they could do it and not have a bare cupboard.
No, that's a good point. They could still trading him though. I'm kind of looking at the cap here. Hey, we'll see. But all right, so mine. So I went corner. I agree. I think wide receiver is still a huge, huge need. I think that there is one guy he's just been grossly underrated by a lot of people. And you talk about speed, you talk about track, star speed, and you talk about a little guy. I mean, yeah, this guy's little too, but Tyler Scott has been just slept on, and I can't understand why. I don't even think that they even have a lot in here to talk about. No, they don't. They do have a couple things, okay? They have the fact that he's a former running back. And let me tell you, we talk about yak yards and how the Ravens just have just no one who could get yak yards once Bateman went down from the outside position. I mean, we talked about the criticisms that Hollywood received. It was almost always about his inability to get yards after catch and his willingness to go out of bounds or go down when contact nears. I like Tyler Scott matches that make you miss ability with junior Olympic sprinter speed, Jimbo. Mm-hmm. Sprinter. Okay. I think he can transition to a return guy if you lose Devin Duvernay or something happen. I think he can transition to that. He's still pretty young to the position. So he's got a lot of growth in that he can get a lot better as a route runner. But this guy, I think I saw a stat where it was let me see it. It showed like of his touchdowns, like 10 of the 14 were 30+ yard catches for touchdowns. The guy just catches deep passes. He scores touchdowns. He'll take a short pass, turn it into a touchdown. I think this guy is just being overlooked by a lot of teams out there, and to get him in the 3rd round, I think will be an absolute steal.
Yeah, I like it. Jason, what say you, my friend?
Yeah, 100%, because I'm a big fan of Tyler Scott. I actually have him above a lot of these receivers that are in, the 5, 6, 7, 8 range. Like, I think I have him right now. He's my number 6 receiver, but it's just because I couldn't find a spot where I think he would go in the 1st round. I think he'll be in the 2nd, 3rd, depending on, again, flavors of ice cream with these receivers, what you're looking for. But I like him a lot more than some of the other guys that you're hearing more about. And so I think to get him in the 3rd round would be a huge steal. And
do you think he'll be available there? It's pretty reasonable.
I think it's reasonable. I think there's a pretty good log jam at receiver. There's also a pretty deep tight end class. So if you're looking for a pass catcher, there's certainly a scenario where it stretches and Tyler Scott's available to you at 86. So this to me is a big win in favor of Glenn there for the pick.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's good. You got to stay competitive somehow.
Now, let me ask you this one quick caveat or one quick little clarification. Would you say it's more likely that he's there at 86 or that Zay Flowers is there at 22?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Dang it.
If I were to say, I think I would say slightly more in the favor of Tyler Scott being there at 86 than Zay being. That's just my own evaluation of it. I think there's going to be a spot for Zay there in the 15 to 20 range. But Tyler Scott, I think, certainly could be there. Again, there are some different flavors of wide receiver that teams might like, or they may look at, a tight end if they're looking for another pass catcher. So certainly a possibility. And, depending on how they have them receivers stacked, I think there's better possibilities. I do think Zay is either 1 or 2 on most boards. I know some people might like Hyatt or Johnston or
Jigba.
Addison, all those guys better. I think Smith and Jigba is probably number 1. If he's not, then he's certainly right behind Zay. So it just depends on how they stack it. But I do think there's a possibility. Fun fact about Tyler Scott, he was already drafted in the the USFL draft. So
was he?
Somebody in their scouting department was not following along because he's gonna be a day 2 pick in the NFL. So. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, good luck to the USFL getting that guy to come over. That would be all right. Well, let me keep this thing going then, Jimbo, and then I'll kick it to you for the next 2. So I agree that cornerback is the biggest need, to the point where I think they should go twice to the cornerback. Well, I don't think
my guy.
I don't think Forbes is their only guy. I think Corey Trice is coming to Baltimore.
Gosh, dang it, Glenn!
Did I ruin it for you? Good.
Yes,
I hope so.
ruined it.
Good. I like.
Now, before you
Corey
talk about
Trice.
this kid, though, Glenn, I gotta know because this is my biggest concern. Jason, do you think this kid's around?
I think it's possible. I know he's climbed the boards. I have him going on day 2. I've actually found a spot with him with the Rams at whatever their second round pick is, 67, 69, whatever it is. But again, like corner is so diverse in terms of what teams are looking for. So if you're looking for a bigger corner, maybe has some safety flexibility. Corey Trice could definitely be that guy. I just think he might go in the top 100. I think it's more likely than not, but we're at 4th round, and what's the pick? 124 or something like that.
Yep, 124.
Yeah, this was my concern.
But he was there every time mock draft I did.
Time.
He was available in the 4th round.
Yeah, yep. and I think that's fair. I do think it just depends on how the board falls, and certainly at the cornerback position, you get into that range. There's like 3 or 4 guys that I've seen that are in that mix. So again, depending on how they fall, certainly one of them, and it could be Corey Trice is there. So I think that's a reasonable value there.
Well, let me talk about him a little bit because what I love about him is this guy he's just a bruiser at corner. I mean, he's 6'3". I love the fact that he will absolutely beat up your receiver in press coverage. And when we look at these guys in the slot specifically, these guys like to, these are quick. They like to get the ball out quick. The receiver does. I mean, the quarterback does. He wants to drop 3 steps, boom, get the ball out. Lessen the opportunity for negative plays, a sack. So the fact that he can disrupt guys at the offense or at the line of scrimmage at his size, I mean, I just think he's going to be a type of guy that just throws off the timing of routes up and down. And when you couple him, you add the fact that you got Marlon on the other side, who's going to absolutely beat you up. You got the height and size of Kyle Hamilton on the back end at 6'4". They're just building a big, talented secondary, and I think they need more than just Emmanuel Forbes in the first round. I think they need to continue to add to this group. I am not sold on Jalen Armour-Davis. I'm not sold on Brandon Stevens. Pepe to a degree, but even him, I mean,
he's got limitations.
And I like Darryl Worley because he's a vet and he played some good ball, but I wouldn't necessarily be. I just think about it. Marlon Humphrey to go down. It's a mess in there. So we need to add guys to the room. So I like Corey Trice here, and I think that was your pick too, wasn't it, Jimbo?
Yeah, it was my pick. And I mean, really, for all the same reasons, I think it's funny how we kind of switched on the way that we attacked this thing. And I went Zay, where you went corner first, and then you went wide receiver as your previous pick, and then I went corner. We both ended up going corner in this pick. So yeah, I like this kid, just like you said, because of all the things you mentioned. Just kind of a rare commodity, being his height, weight, and athleticism. His mobility is exciting and intriguing. So there's probably some rawness to his game and going to be a bit of a learning curve, but I think at this pick, like Jason mentioned before, it's really about flavors. And we know John and the Ravens from the first time, the Ravens ever drafted a corner to today, when they draft corners, they want physical corners who like to play physical. And this kid is the epitome of that. So I like him here. I just hope he's there. I hope he's there. That's the thing.
Do you see him as an outside guy? What do you think about him, Jason? Is inside, outside?
Yeah,
both?
I think he's definitely going to be more of an outside. I don't know if you want to make him more of an overhang. You got Kyle Hamilton to do a lot of those things. So I think he's definitely, the position he played in college was like the boundary corner, so on like short side of the field. So just let him roam that area, and like I said, big physical kid, and that's a good player to have when in the run game. Banging around receivers. I mean, I think that's a pretty interesting approach and something that's been proven successful. If you've got, big athletic corners that'll hit you. I mean, it's kind of that Legion of Boom kind of model there. And there's nothing wrong with trying to do that as long as you're getting great athletes and that's what you've got there.
Yeah, buddy.
100%.
All right, Jimbo. Well,
all right.
I'll let you take over. So I'm going to go ahead and put the cornerback pick in for Trice since we both liked him. And we'll see what you have to say about 157.
Yeah, I don't like the rest of my picks. It's really about flavors.
Well, hold on. It looks like DK just threw something up here. James Henkels says Banks, Andre Carter, A.T. Perry, Jackson Kirkland, and Javon Hicks. I looked at Perry. I looked at Jack. I wasn't the biggest fans of those guys personally, but what do you think about those guys, James? Since you're Jason, since you're the expert.
I like A.T. Perry in that kind of late second, third round range. I think, he has an advantage of being a bigger guy in a field of, smaller receivers. And I think he's a talented guy, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him slip maybe into the fourth round. I actually like Jackson Kirkland, but I like him as a guard. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a day 3 pick, but certainly has a tackle experience. So if you value that positional flexibility and, maybe save a roster spot or something like that, I mean, I wouldn't hate that in the 5th, 6th round. I'm not sure about doing Andre Carter in the 3rd round. I think he didn't have the best year. The process hasn't been overly kind to him. I think he's a year or 2 away from being, let alone seeing playing time, but even being an impact defender. He's just not strong enough at this point. And then Javon Hicks, I can't say I'm familiar with Javon Hicks if that's who we're talking about there. I don't think I have him on the board. I'd have to look into Dane Brugler's Beast to find out who that is. But maybe it's somebody that's worth a flyer in the late on day 3. So,
gotcha. Well, hey, I appreciate you answering the question. All right, Jimbo.
All right, man.
Doing?
So, like I said, I'm not huge fans of these guys, but I took them based on potential.
Okay.
So I'm going to go inside offensive lineman. He's a tackle in college. Jackson Kirkland out of Washington, because he's freaking huge.
He is huge, but
he's huge, but I'm concerned.
Can he bend?
Right. Well, and there seems to be concerns about his lack of power, but there's a few things that I like here. It seems that he's progressed every year in college, which is great. Right. And you're playing against a big name in Ohio State there. Now that was years ago,
but look at this in 2020.
Right. Also great. So he's shown progression. He's massive. And we obviously have a thing about drafting gargantuan offensive linemen in Falele, who,
it's true.
And then Ben Cleveland, who just
Orlando Brown.
Yeah. He has a mini fridge full of babies that he just eats for breakfast. Just ridiculous. So yeah, I like this kid because of the potential upside. I think he needs to get stronger. I think you can bump him inside and you can compete for that left guard position. And he can have a spot there. So am I in love with it? Is it still a draft? No, but I think we need some inside offensive lineman depth there, and maybe someone that is potentially a little more than just serviceable. And Ben Cleveland is very injury prone. So I think it's a solid pick there. That's where I'm going.
Okay. All right. See, Jackson, I looked at him, but I just get worried when I just don't know if he plays low enough, if he gets too high, and then
he's high and he's not super strong.
Yeah, and he just doesn't play to 6'7", 321. But Jason, what do you think about Jackson here? And what round are we in here? We're in the 5th round, right?
Yeah.
5th round. I think, like Jimmy said, it's a solid pick. I'd have to see who else was on the board at the time. But I mean, if I have guard is kind of a sneaky kind of mid-round need for the Ravens. So I mean, I wouldn't be have a problem with that. I see a couple of names I might like.
I
better.
like Bradford a lot.
Yeah, I think him, Mafi. I like Mafi. Mafi's a big old nasty dude, and I doubt that he's going to have tested well. I'd have to go back and look at his numbers, but he's a road grader and he plays left guard. So I mean, somebody that you could slot in there and
there you go.
Just be a big sloppy guy that's knocking people around. But I mean, any one of those guys, like I think like Mafi is guard only, Bradford guard only. They're big guys, but Kirkland does have that little bit of tackle flexibility too, obviously, because he would be sliding in to play guard. I think guard would be a better position for him, but you'd certainly have that in a pinch if you need somebody to step in there as well. So,
do you think sometimes at guard it ever becomes like your height? While at tackle you want the length and the height, does that almost become a bad thing because you're in more of a phone booth at a certain point? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it can. For me, it's just watching these guys and looking at how they move, and if their knee bend is good, if they can play with power, because a lot of the times with these bigger guys, their biggest advantage is just kind of getting away, and you just have a long way to go around. I think DeJuan Jones is kind of the same kind of boat from Ohio State. He's going to go a little bit higher. But if you slide inside, that's the only other thing. And depending on who you got playing quarterback, that can also be a disadvantage, because if you got a lot of taller guys in the middle, then you might make it more challenging to see over them. But I think, like I said, Kirkland, I think, projects best as a guard. And in this range, again, we're in the 5th round. I wouldn't hate that there for the Ravens.
All right, like it. All right, Glenn.
All right. Yeah, I think that they need to still address edge. And at this point, when you get this late in the round, I was looking at Jose Ramirez. I think while he is, the Ravens typically have a type of a size that they like, and that's usually in around the 260 mark in the edge department. But it's a new time. I think that they need to get faster. They need to get pass rush. And this guy, has certainly shown that he has natural pass rush ability. And I think that that's what would intrigue the Ravens about him. I think they bring him in and hope that they can get, enhance what he's or get him a little bit better at some of his inefficiencies, maybe get some weight on him because it's going to be tough for him to get on the field in downs 1 and 2. But I think he has natural pass rush. And I think at this time in the draft, if you find a guy that has that, then you take a flyer on him and see if you can, if he can transition to the NFL. So I like Jose Ramirez, but again, there's warts on all these guys when you get this late. But what do you think about that, Jason, if they were able to get Jose in the 5th round?
Yeah, I think that's a good value for him. Like you said, I think he's one of the better edge rushers once you get into that range. After that, you're going to either stay with guys that are a little too small or maybe need a little bit more technique, maybe a little bit more refinement. So I kind of have him in that 3-4 range. But of course, my 3-4 goes up to like 150 because, again, I kind of weight this according to how many teams are involved and what they could look at. So I have him kind of as that kind of 5th round type player. I actually have him ahead of Carter, as we saw in the chat there earlier. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
I know Daniel Jeremiah was a big fan of him and really talked him up during like the combine and stuff. So I think that's a good value for Ramirez there. And he's probably one of the, I don't know what the rest of their board looks like. He's probably one of the last like really kind of bankable edge rushers that you're going to see once you get into that range. I think after that, it's either projects or, guys that, the ceiling is not going to be too high. But I think Ramirez is somebody that you could certainly use a 5th round pick on and hope for the best.
Nice. Okay.
Like
I'm gonna put him in the books. And Jimbo, 199 is all yours.
All right, let's do it. Really quickly, Baltimore Get Up says Flowers, Stevenson.
Overshown.
Okay, here we go. I was confused by the number in the middle. All right. Phelps and Stromberg. How you feeling about this one, Jason? Give him a grade.
Let me first Let me look up Phelps. Who we're talking? Oh, Lonnie Phelps. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Flowers, Stevenson, Overshone, Lonnie Phelps, Ricky Stromberg. The only one there is I don't think Ricky Stromberg is going to last to the 6th round. I think you'll see him either early on day 3. He might even slip into day 2. So that would be a good draft. And then also, with him being a center, he's probably gonna at least fight for a starting job at center. So I don't know, you might want to try him at guard if you were to pick him, since you've got Linderbaum. But yeah, overall, I think that's first perfectly solid draft right there.
Nice.
All
Congratulations,
right.
Baltimore.
Yeah,
get up. Knocking it out of the park.
That's a stamp of approval right there if I've ever seen one.
And speaking of that, there goes Stromberg, pick 161 in this mock draft, which would be the 5th round, I believe. So, but almost to the 6th. So I guess it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
No. Depending on who, I like a couple of guys better. I like Juice Scruggs from Penn State a little bit better, and then Oluwatimi from Michigan. So again, depending on where they're stacked, there's not usually a giant run on centers during the draft. Then you got a couple of guys that do have positional flex to play center, and maybe some guys that project better at center. So there's a possibility that he's going to be there for you.
Nice.
Okay. All right, Jimbo, 199. What do you say?
All right, pick 199. I'm going right down to College Park, and I'm taking an edge guy, finally addressing the edge position in a less hybrid role, in a more standard alignment, and Darrell Nachami. And look, once again, also a flyer. I mean, we're talking 199, but you look at his size, I think he's there 6'4", 260. But the biggest thing that stuck out to me about him, Glenn, if you go to the stats here, and if you look at actually do me a favor and go to analysis. I apologize. You can see it in stats and analysis, I believe. Wait,
doesn't
where am
show
I
it
looking?
in
Okay, go
analysis.
back.
Oh,
What about trends? Trends. Go back to stats. Sorry, right where you started. I just like the jump. Not only in production, but obviously in the ranking here in PFF, he's gotten better every year, and he had a significant jump this year. According to, some more in-depth, stats here, it doesn't look like he's the best when it comes to, run defense, which is concerning to me. But overall, as a football player, he upticked in sacks. He upticked in a decent amount of numbers, obviously went down in hurries. But look, I think that there's an opportunity there. And the reason I think that the Ravens can take a flyer on him is because they have a geographical advantage, and how many times they could see this kid play. They could know more about him than a lot of other people, and it could be worth it. So I think he'll be there, and I think there could be an opportunity for it to be a fit.
All right. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him get a Terrapin, Now, Jason, what do you think about that pick? I'm showing you the other edge available currently right now. You got Mathis Phelps, who was just mentioned in the last comment, Incoom, Anderson. What do you think about Nachami? I'm probably not even pronouncing his name correct at that spot.
I think you got it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me.
Okay.
I like Nachami. He was like one of the last guys that I watched, and he did pop off the tape for me. Like the pass rush ability is there. He's going to have warts like any of these guys here late on day 3. I do think I have him as a 5 to 7. So, I mean, I think that the range is good for him. He may also be somebody that you could get as a priority free agent, depending on who's left on the board that you could look at. I have him over Mathis, to be honest. Matt, the one that you had up there, I think Phelps would be in this range too, but I can't argue with going with Nachami, especially if the Ravens have, their inside intel about how they, what they think they could do with him, and being local, you have an advantage. I think that's an advantage for a lot of teams. And Maryland certainly doesn't have a shortage of talent in this draft. So, to take him at 200, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Nice. Yeah. And I always like seeing a Terp. We don't get a lot of Terps as the Ravens, which is surprising because you said the proximity you'd think would give them an advantage. Maybe that advantage is that they're hearing bad things, but we certainly see a lot of Terps out there being successful. All right. So the way I took this last one, I think a sneaky important position, a sneaky need for the Ravens is backup quarterback, Jimbo. And there's a guy on this list.
Oh gosh,
that I think is dropping down boards because, and tell me if I'm crazy. Is the reason, and Jason, you would know this, is the reason him dropping down these boards because of him being arrested for being drunk?
I don't think that's the reason why. Like, I think, like, so let me kind of go back because I remember whether it was the last one or one of the shows you guys were doing recently, and you mentioned like looking at where I had kind of slotted Stetson Bennett, and I put him in that 3-4 range, and I thought, 5th round. But then you hear about more of the personal side of things, and it's not that he has personal problems. I mean, yeah, he's older, and he should probably know better than to be knocking on people's doors when he's a little under the influence there in Dallas. And I don't think that's that. We've seen enough of that. It wasn't something that was a little more serious than what that is. But it sounds like it's more of a personality thing, and I've looked at this because when I tried to slot him in my 7 round, I was like, I think the Ravens might work because Todd Monken is there. And so there's a natural connection, and, to have somebody, and I don't think the size would necessarily be an issue. Like, he's another one of these smaller quarterbacks, but I mean, it wasn't too long ago that Trace McSorley was running around there too. So, I mean, he was a smaller quarterback, had a good college career. And I think, to take a late flyer to draft Stetson Bennett, I don't have a problem with that. And especially if you're not investing that much capital in it. Obviously, we're looking at it from the standpoint of, we're just picking to pick what the picks are. But if you were to trade back and add more, like, yeah, certainly throw a dart because I think you have a better chance of him maybe being successful than some of these other quarterbacks on day 3. Or even the priority free agents. Like, I'd much rather take a chance that Stetson Bennett can do something as opposed to maybe Max Duggan from TCU.
Yeah,
certainly better than Tanner McKee, who, like, to be honest, like, I'm sure in the PFF board he's going like in the top 50. I don't think he's going to get drafted.
Right. Yeah, and also
but
there's a bunch of veterans out there that they could go at, but in my opinion, Lamar Jackson's missed 11 games the last 2 years, so you can't discount the importance of having a quality backup.
Yeah.
Tyler Huntley's here to be the backup quarterback in Greg Roman's system, not in Todd Monken's system. So I don't think Tyler Huntley is in their plans going forward. So who's going to be your backup quarterback? You want to go get some recycled veteran and hope that he can pick up this offense, or go get a guy who knows the offense already, knows the verbiage, knows the terminology, has a relationship already with the offensive coordinator, which we see how important that is in the signing of Odell Beckham. And Todd Monken was a huge centerpiece to making that a thing that can happen. So why not go get a guy who's like an extension of your offensive coordinator in the room, in the off chance that Lamar Jackson is a late comer to camp, need to get him caught up to speed quickly. I'd like to have a coach in the room in the backfield with him who can help, teach him more things when the offensive coordinator is not sitting on his shoulder. He can help with the verbiage. I just think Stetson Bennett is an obvious choice, especially if, like you mentioned, Jason, they trade back and accumulate more picks. And this is an opportunity where they can just throw a dart and go, hey, maybe he needs to start 2-3 games. He already knows the offense. He already has a relationship. And if he's brought in, we can only surmise that Todd Monken feels that those personality issues aren't a thing and that they are being overblown, much like the kind of perception of Odell Beckham. And he kind of dispelled those, saying, yeah, guy wants the ball. What great player in offense doesn't want the ball? Maybe he can kind of dispel some of these issues that Stetson has, and that maybe they are a bit overblown.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. No, I like it as well, Glenn, for all the same reasons you said. I just hope that when he gets out there and some of these edge rushers start coming after him, he doesn't use a dip as a mouthpiece and he puts an actual mouthpiece in. If anything, that's what's pushing him down the board. It's the dip in the pro day and a water in his mouth like a dump. Like, dude, what are you doing?
I mean, I hear you, but imagine being the quarterback for the back-to-back national championships in Georgia. What that would do to you as a person.
Oh, right.
I would be the most obnoxious asshole because I'd be like, the world is in my hands. Like, it'd be hard for me not to make. So I can't criticize because I'm like, how would I be if I was like that? I could be worse.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I hear you. I just, no. I'm with you. I'm part of it. I'm just busting his chops, but yeah, I don't think that, I think the days of, I could be wrong, but I think the days of nicotine usage in professional sports has diminished greatly. And so it's except O linemen. Like if you're an O lineman, I think it's acceptable. Like you got your dip, and I think that's a general thing. But yeah, anyway, I think it's an okay pick. I like it, Glenn, and I think it's probably a better scenario to deal with based on Monken being here than any other backup scenario we have. So that's it for us, unless I'm missing something. No, I think that's
let me just put the pick in. Let me put it in. Let's get our grade. Let's get our grade. Now we did this a little different because we picked some of your picks, some of my picks, but in the end, I just want to recap mine. You can recap yours. Yeah. So I had Forbes in the first round, Tyler Scott in the third round, Corey Trice in the fourth, Jose Ramirez in the fifth, and Stetson Bennett in the sixth. So Jimmy, when you recap yours, if you could.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. What did we get real quick as a grade?
B+.
They do not like Tyler Scott, though.
I know, and that is the most.
Did they grade it because you took Zay, and so like you went with another need, like you should?
Well, that would be in the overall grade, I think. But I think that
so they just grade
individually.
Sorry, I don't really use their simulator, so I'm not familiar with their.
Well, they're obviously bashing Tyler Scott. Are they crazy for overlooking him?
I don't think they're crazy. I think the USFL guys, it's more egregious. But I think to draft somebody at 119 at 86 to give it a D-, I think that's a little harsh. But again, I don't know how they do that or if it was based on who was left on the board. I'm sure they had a lot of guys that were like in the 50s or 60s. If I don't use theirs, but I use other ones. And so sometimes that can happen. And it's like, well, you should have just taken whoever was at the top of the board. And if it lined up with a need, I think that's a little harsh.
Okay. So you would think that this is an okay draft if you saw the Ravens come out like this?
Well, I mean, we're kind of mix mashing the two, right?
Hold on, let's do this. Let's do this instead.
Well, I have mine queued up. I can share my results because I took a screenshot of my
same
results earlier, so I'll put that up. Let's see here. All right, and there we go. All right, so this was mine earlier, and I'll throw it up that way everyone can see. So this was mine from earlier when I did one on my own. So, this is my Cam Young one. Hang on. This is my Cam Young one. There we go. Stetson Bennett one. Because there was some where Stetson wasn't available. So I'd had one where Cam Young was my 6th round pick. But what do you think if this was, what would you grade this draft right there? And then actually we'll put that up and then we'll put yours up. You ready, Jimbo? So that you can keep this in mind here, Jason. Keep these names in mind.
Well, the thing is that it won't allow us with already 4 people in and the screen share.
I'm going to take mine down, and you can put yours up.
All right, cool. All right.
Yeah, I've got it up here now.
He steel trapped it. He put it in the steel trap.
All right. Remove that from the stream though, Glenn, if you can. That way I can because it still won't. Okay, cool. Let me make sure I can do this right. Share my screen. Let me just do this.
While we're kind of waiting, I went back and looked where I had Javon Hicks. I don't have him on my board because in the Beast, he's like the 60th ranked safety.
Oof, safety.
So you maybe look at him as an undrafted free agent.
Another Ardarius Washington pickup.
Yeah. So I didn't look at him. There's it's perfectly fine that maybe he's in that 5th to 7th round range. I just didn't look at him because I've only got so much time in the day and don't do this year round. So I kind of stopped at about 500. Then I had to add like 2 or 3 more guys that were starting to get a little bit of buzz around pro days and visits and stuff. So Javon Hicks, if you want to take that flyer, go right ahead.
Now, let me ask you this while Jimbo pulls this up.
Well, this is the problem.
What?
This is the
you
problem.
Didn't save it?
No, I have it right here. I'm on my work computer, but they're not allowing me to share on StreamYard.
Oh, well, just tell them what it is.
Just
So you have to trust me here, honor system. I promise. It's literally right in front of me. I could text it. Anyway, a picture of it to Glenn just so he knows I'm being legit here.
That's what I did, by the way. I just took a picture and sent it to our email.
It's Zay Flowers, Nick Herbig, Corey Trice, Jackson Kirkland, and Darrell Nachami.
Okay. I'm going to say that I like Glenn's just a little bit better. I think the combination of Forbes and Tyler Scott, and then you follow that with Trice and then you add Jose Ramirez. I think overall, I think they're both kind of in that solid B to B plus range. Just a little bit more in the direction of Glenn, because I'm not as big of a fan of Herbig as some people are.
Yeah, that ruined my draft.
So that would have been a little bit.
PFF probably had you rated higher though, by far, because they hate Tyler Scott.
Because I do worry about his fit, and that's the thing about a lot of these Wisconsin linebacker edge guys that have come out in recent years.
Yeah, who was that guy last year, Jason, that came out of Wisconsin? Smaller linebacker. I liked him, but he was the same boat. It was an undersized Wisconsin guy.
Yeah, I remember Leo Chanel, but he's a straight linebacker though, and I think Herbig is one of these like hybrid, edge guys. But I don't know that he's got the bend and burst of say like a Hassan Reddick or like a Nolan Smith or some of these other guys that kind of play that same role. He's a little bit more along the lines of those just really solid Wisconsin players, and so that's why I've kind of gone back and forth. I still have him in that kind of range, but just as far as what you got there, I like. I think I mentioned as we were looking at like a couple of guys I like they're better on the edge. Maybe not the same type of player, but maybe a better just overall prospect on the value.
Nice. Gotcha. Well, congrats, Glenn. Congratulations. Thank you. Even up the scores. Jason, we appreciate it so much for you coming on. We have an absolute blast. We'll be looking forward to hopefully interacting with you again, at least maybe for a few minutes on draft night after the Ravens make their pick if they don't trade out, which is very highly likely. But that's it for us, folks. We're going to let everyone go. We had a long one tonight, and we're looking forward to Thursday night. So make sure to join us. Thank you all for coming out. I had a great one. Glenn, great job.
Yeah, you too, bud.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you guys so much, DK. Appreciate it. Jason, of course, thank you. And we'll talk to you guys soon.